Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Yesterday Sports on the Sports History Network. Today, we're going to step back in time to the year 1969. On January 12th, 1969, the New York Jets defeated the Baltimore Colts in Super Bowl III. It's still one of the biggest upsets in NFL history. In April of 1969, the number of American troops in Vietnam reached its highest point at approximately 543,400. On July 20th, 1969, astronauts Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin became the first men to walk on the moon. On August 15th, 1969, hundreds of thousands of people flocked to Woodstock, New York for a 3-day music festival. While all this was happening, the Baltimore Orioles were having one of the best seasons in Major League Baseball history. After winning the World Series in 1966, the Orioles struggled in 1967, finishing the season with a disappointing 76-85 record. They bounced back in 1968 with a 91-71 record. But they were a distant second to the Detroit Tigers, who finished the season 12 games ahead of Baltimore. The Orioles started the 1969 season with new manager Earl Weaver, who was hired midway through the 1968 season. The team was loaded with talent, including 3 future Hall of Famers: pitcher Jim Palmer, right fielder Frank Robinson, and third baseman Brooks Robinson. By the end of June, the Orioles were 55-21. No other team in the American League was even close to them. The All-Star Game was played on July 23rd, and 6 Orioles players made the team. Center fielder Paul Blair, second baseman Davey Johnson, first baseman Boog Powell, third baseman Brooks Robinson, right fielder Frank Robinson, and pitcher Dave McNally. By the end of July, the Orioles had a 15-game lead over the Tigers in the newly formed Eastern Division with a 72-31 record. From August 30th to September 25th, the team won 19 of 24 games. The Orioles finished the regular season with a 109-53 record and were touted as one of the best teams in Major League Baseball history. Boog Powell and Frank Robinson had monster seasons. Powell had 37 home runs, 121 RBIs, and a .304 batting average. Robinson had 32 home runs, 100 RBIs, and a .308 batting average. Paul Blair hit 26 home runs, Brooks Robinson drove in 84 runs, and left fielder Don Buford batted .291. While these stats may not seem overly impressive by today's standards, remember that this was during an era when pitching ruled. Speaking of pitching, the Orioles had some of the best pitchers in baseball. Mike Cuellar had a 23-11 record with a 2.38 ERA and was voted co-winner of the Cy Young Award. Dave McNally won 20 games, and Jim Palmer had a 2.34 REA. 1969 would be the first year the Major League Baseball had playoffs. Baltimore would face the Minnesota Twins, the American League Western Division champions. The Twins didn't go down easy in Game 1. Frank Robinson hit a solo home run off pitcher Jim Perry in the fourth inning to give Baltimore a 1-0 lead, but the Tigers tied the score in the top of the fifth. Shortstop Mark Morthier, an 8-time Gold Glove winner not known for his hitting, surprised everyone by hitting a solo home run in the bottom of the fifth to give Baltimore a 2-1 lead. Tony Oliva hit a home run, a 2-run homer, off Mike Cuellar in the top of the seventh to give the Tigers a 3-2 lead. In the bottom of the ninth, Boog Powell hit a 400-foot blast to send the game into extra innings. In the bottom of the 12th, Paul Blair laid down a bunt that scored Mark Belanger from third base, giving the Orioles a hard-fought 4-3 win. Mike Cuellar pitched 8 innings and gave up only 3 hits. Third baseman Brooks Robinson had 4 hits. Game 2 was a pitcher's duel between the Twins' Dave Boswell and the Orioles' Dave McNally. McNally pitched the entire game, giving up only 3 hits and no runs, while Boswell pitched 10 2/3 scoreless innings. With 2 outs and the bases loaded in the bottom of the 11th inning, pinch hitter Kurt Motson drove in Boog Powell for the winning run to put Baltimore up 2-0. Game 3 was never in question, as the Orioles won easily 11-2. Pitcher Jim Palmer earned the win and had plenty of support, as the Orioles had 18 hits. Paul Blair played a great game, hitting a home run and driving in 5 of the 11 runs. And so the stage was set for the World Series. I was 7 years old, and it's the first World Series I remember watching. The Orioles would take on the New York Mets, who had finished the regular season with a 162 record and swept the Atlanta Braves 3-0 in the NLCS. The Orioles were heavily favored to win the series. The starting pitchers were Cy Young Award winners Mike Cuellar for the Orioles and Tom Seaver for the Mets. That will conclude part 1 of this podcast. Next week we will have part 2, and we will go over the World Series games between the Orioles and the Mets. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and God bless.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.